Be online? Okay. I'd like to call the December 12th regular Board of Public Works meeting to order. First thing, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A moment of silence. Thank you. So, do the roll call. We have all 5 commissioners here, or board members here. Barbara Curtis, Preston Lee, Richard Nichols, Bob Heffernan, and guess the mayor's not with us. And Austin General Manager, Robin Davis, Assistant General Manager, Mike Hoffman, Legal Counsel. So first thing I'd like to do is, acknowledge this is Austin's last board meeting. And, Austin has been, actually Austin's been with the board longer than I have. Did he predate you, Brad?
No, I go back a little bit.
But, Austin came on as Assistant General Manager and then was promoted to General Manager when Darren left us. We have to thank Darren considerably for the training and efforts that brought Austin up to the caliber of being General Manager. He has far surpassed anything I could have imagined at the time. So I think we definitely want to thank Austin, and I'd like to get a group picture first with the board and then with Kim and Sharon and Mike and Robin, I'm sorry. So, and Bill Scholl has graciously agreed to be our photographer. So, on the other side here?
Down here for the other.
I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, I didn't see you back.
That's not good.
Walking out.
Yeah, absolutely.
How are you?
You want to do it, well, with the screen back there, it's never great. Well, if you guys fill in this way,
Yeah.
you want to fill in this way, and then,
That's fine.
yeah.
Move.
Let's see, maybe just,
Doesn't matter.
Mike, you don't want to get in?
I'll get the second one.
Okay. All right, let's
Yeah.
tighten it up a little bit. There we go. All right, I'll slide this over.
Chairs can move.
All right, everyone pretend like you like him.
Up to no, Bill.
Yeah, I'll do a couple more.
Cash and spending there.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right, good.
Kim, Sharon, Mike, Robin.
I'm staying.
I gotta.
Oh, it's true.
I'm not very tall anyway, so.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't talk people.
Yeah. You guys can get them. I am wearing my funky
Oh.
though.
Tom went out on one day.
bless me, Father.
All right.
Austin, would you like one of just the staff?
Huh?
Would you like one of just the staff?
It does not matter. You guys want to just
Yeah.
snap?
Yeah. You might as well document it.
Yeah. Because if I don't take it, you'll say, oh, how can you?
Yeah.
He's got to come all the way back here.
That's good.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Sure.
Now with the formalities over, the consent agenda. Barbara, I think you wanted,
Yes, I wanted to pull out the Vice President report. I've been participating in the City and BPW Grant Committee, and something came up recently. GMB put together some nice cameos about different projects for which we could apply for grants, and we received a response from DEMA about some of the grants, whether they were worth applying for, whether the likelihood of success. And one of them, near and dear to my heart, is the undergrounding of the electric wires. And that relates to, the upcoming 4th Street project where the road's going to be torn up. And it seems like it might be a good opportunity to apply for a grant to underground the electric. And I'd like to raise that for consideration. DEMA said, and I quote here, "Electric power distribution system undergrounding. Yes, absolutely. We have proof and precedence here in Delaware already. City of Seaford just had this same type of project approved under BRIC for their Oyster House Park. Plus, any backups or redundancies to maintain the primary grid is an added bonus." So I'd like to raise that for consideration at a future meeting to apply for the grant, unless we can decide that now, I don't
I
know.
was
No.
sending you an article. Long Island Power Authority just got a grant to look at resiliency. And I haven't had a chance to finish reading the article, but I'll send that to you also.
Yeah,
What would be the parameters of that? I mean, any idea?
No, but, GMB is reluctant to put together some costs until they understand whether we're going to apply for this. And I was thinking that there were 2 ways we could apply for it. We could just put the conduit in place if we can't get agreement from all the other pole owners or pole attachment folks, Verizon and whomever. We could do that in 2 steps if need be, but we would obviously want to apply for a grant for the whole thing because that would be even better.
Barbara, do you have any feel for the timing, how long that would take, as opposed to, in conjunction with the project that we have, is it going to delay it?
I had the impression, do you remember, Kim?
I don't remember the exact dates, but I know we are talking about trying to line it up, and I believe you guys were talking about the fall for approval.
I thought submission was in the spring.
Yeah, I think it would take a year, probably, to find out if we're getting the grant. Probably another 3 or 4 months to finalize the paperwork. So I would say spring of 2026 you would know about the grant. But we're not looking to go to construction on that project until the fall of 2026.
It would work.
Could work out, yeah, could work out.
Good.
And I'm glad you added that caveat about the other providers, because working with the BPW to get the power underground, it's hard, but at least we have cooperation, not so much on the, communications and telephone. It just takes a long time to get those guys involved. And we would probably be spitballing their costs too, because they won't give you costs until they get deep into their work. But we can probably come up with something where we apply for more grant money than we might end up needing.
Do they have some of their own poles in that area?
I think they do. We were talking about that a little bit today. Yeah, I think they do.
So Mike, on our pole attachments, if they disappear, our poles, do we have any responsibility back to
You have leases with those organizations and they address relocation and whatnot. So, I mean, again, you just have to do it consistent with that agreement. But I think the request was to put this on an agenda, and I think it makes sense to put it on a future agenda. Thank you.
Just we don't put it in 20 seconds. Not to try to stonewall,
Barbara,
but-
go ahead.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of, well, with the addendum of what Barbara just offered?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Inframark. Jeff, you going to be presenting? Okay. Oh, just let the record show the Mayor Andrews has arrived. Okay,
Good afternoon. So, updates, the headworks is 100% complete. I believe the last time we spoke, we were waiting for the grading to be finished. That has been installed and is done. We did have an incident that goes back to our spare pumps. We had both pumps fail at pump station 11, which is on Hornkill. Luckily, it's not a very high flow area. We're able to pump it out a couple times a week and keep up until we had a pump repaired. The one pump has been repaired and is back in service, and we're waiting for the other pump to come back from repair.
was it a common mode failure or?
The electrical leads on both pumps seem to have failed. So it appears that one pump may have failed. It looked like it was running, but it wasn't actually pumping. So when the second pump failed, that's when we realized that the first pump wasn't moving water. It was showing like we were having a draw, but it wasn't actually spinning the impellers. So we do have one pump back in service on that. We did install a new non-potable pump at the plant to use on the screens for cleaning purposes. The Kubota membranes, I got a quote for replacement. When we had the inspection done, they gave us a 3 to 5 year life expectancy. We got a quote for replacement. It came in a lot lower than I expected it to be. So the board is aware, they do have an option to basically lock in a price, and then you have 5 years to purchase the membranes from that point. So if you're looking to replace them within the next 5 years, you can sign a contract now saying you're going to. You lock that price in. You don't pay until you actually order them, but you are required to order them within 5 years. So, and I believe Austin has that quote.
It's in the budget for consideration. Budget season, capital budget wise.
Why would they do that?
What's that?
It's a great question.
Come out the next iteration.
Yeah.
Yeah, but to hold the price for 5 years,
You cut a PO, you don't pay for them.
I understand.
It's-
I understood what you said.
I just don't understand the business.
I was acknowledging what
You were just doing it wrong, Bob.
What I was told is they do set it up so you can make a payment plan if you want, but you're not required to pay for them until you actually place the order.
And it's not a large amount. Did you mention what it was?
It was $64,000.
Yeah, we thought, and that's complete replacement. That would be like if they brought everything in, frames, all the filters, you literally pull one out, put the next one in. You don't have to, there's no interchangeability, anything like that.
So the total cost of replacing them?
$56,000 roughly.
64,000, yes,
64.
for both sets.
For both sets?
Yeah, complete, that's like the creme de la creme. They have another option where you can keep all your frames and just replace your cassettes, which are they're the disc like ceramic tiles. But you can also just do 64,000, pick it up and put it in and be done.
I believe that the cost savings was less than $10,000 to replace just the frames. And then it's more time intensive. You'd have to have a crane on site longer because it would take you probably 3 to 4 days to pull them out, replace them all, replace all the hosing and put them back in. We did do a clean out on the old EQ tank and sent the pump there out for repair in preparation for the EQ tank clean out, which was completed yesterday. So we had CES on site. We pumped the tank down, got down in it, got all the grit, everything out, all the ragging was removed. That was done yesterday, and the tank is back online. There was some grit. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be, but there was some grit.
As far as the ragging goes,
There was a fair bit of ragging stuck up on the mixers, the blowers.
in comparison to last time it was cleaned, because it wasn't cleaned all that long ago.
It wasn't as bad as last time. So, and I believe that was 4 or 5 years ago it was done.
Yes. Well, we're having a lot less ragging now that,
Yes, it's been cut down significantly. We did also get a quote for the containment area. We got quotes for the alum containment area, the caustic and citric containment area, the old EQ tank ring, as well as the anoxic tank for the digesters. I've been talking with GMB and we're discussing those quotes now. So the quotes have been in, we're just kind of reevaluating to see if it's worth moving forward.
Okay, while we're on this section here, what's the latest on the pump station 4 generator pump configuration?
So one of the things that we discussed is, we had a meeting with GMB, and the question is, we can get a bypass pump, but the bypass pump that we currently have would not cover peak flows. And so the question was upgrading the bypass pump, and then we led into, well, if we ever upgrade the station, because one pump can't sustain the entire flow. So if we want to upgrade to put 2 large pumps in, basically to run in a true lead and lag, that's an option, but then that affects what your generator sizing is, because you may need to upgrade to true 3-phase coming in, because we have step-up transformers now. So there's a bunch, like we can configure it to put 3 pumps in there. I think we can configure it to put 3. The long story short is we went to originally go for a 50-50 planning grant. They don't have on the clean water side, they don't do 50-50 planning grants. You have to go about, what's it called, Ben?
Project planning advance.
Project planning advance, but then that's a trigger to say you wanna go get a loan. And we don't necessarily wanna go get a loan. Am I correct in stating that?
You're correct.
The process forward is if you go and get that funding, you have to go get a clean water loan. You're talking about a project that I would view as probably under $1 million at the, all said and done. So I don't necessarily know that the path would take us down that road. I mean, we can cut GMB loose and start the design on it. I got a price to put a generator there to sustain what is currently there, and I think it was $185,000 was a turnkey solution from Fidelity. It was one price because we went to one vendor.
But that didn't support the upgrade of the pumps.
No, that station still configures in not a true lead lag. Both pumps need to be running to sustain peak flow, which is not typical because when you run a true lead lag, you're running a lead pump and if one fails, you have a backup of second one, which is how you have that redundancy. In this case, both pumps would need to run to handle all peak flows that come to that station. That's one of the oldest stations in the town.
You know, we've been talking about this for a long time.
Well, and that goes back to the whole
We're-
wastewater
we're
treatment plant.
renting- We're renting this other generator out there.
We spent a lot of money on that.
That generator doesn't have, my understanding, when we talked about this, that generator doesn't have the ability to actually handle both pumps. Is that how I remember it?
That's my understanding. So when we had the power outage, we ran it with that generator, but we only had to run one pump due to the low flows.
Yeah.
So if we had it during peak flow and both pumps were to kick on, I don't know that the generator would keep up.
You gotta think that station has been slightly upgraded through time. So the pumps that were there originally when the town was a lot smaller and you didn't have as much sewer, you probably upgraded pumps throughout the years, and now you have these big Gorman Rups in there, and they have a very large draw.
Could you say put another one in?
There is a,
Has capacity in the wet well to take that?
there's a pedestal, you can come up in, but there's a pedestal there that looks like it was set up for a third pump. The question is how much configuration on the suction line, and whether there's enough space there to handle a third pump.
Well, I mean, you pretty much said it all. I mean, the idea, I think, that we want to look at which is the best option. Like, can we fit 3 pumps?
Or too big.
Or do we do 2 upgraded pumps? And what's the most cost-effective option for the board to move forward? Because either way, it's going to be a good chunk of money to do one or the other.
Is the upgrading matter of changing in Palo or
I don't,
more extensive?
it's probably more extensive because we want to look at, you know, the future flows of the you know, sewer shed. So that has all the city flow, all the city side flow going to that pump station. So we don't want to do something for today's condition. We want to look at it for, you know, 10 to 15, 20 years in the future that pump can handle that flow. So right off the hand, I don't know that those pumps will do that. I don't know if there's upgrades to that pump that can make that handle that, but, you know, that's kind of what we want to look at in more detail.
So
Is it reasonable? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
when you say you're thinking about the future, are you thinking about us pumping to Wolf Neck?
So
Is that-
that's one of the things we've struggled with in talking with Austin on this of what's, you know, it's hard to commit down that path without knowing the other path.
Ah, right.
But, you know,
It's-
it's tough.
Because there was discussions with GHD when they did their original study that said, do you upgrade pump station 4, the existing pump station, to be your regional, and have 8 pump to 4, which for everybody that's here, 8's on American Legion Road, handles all of the flow of the beach side. 4 is the pump station on the corner of Gills Neck Road and Savannah Road, which handles all the flow for the town side. So one of the questions was, do you actually make it, instead of being a wet well, dry well setup, do you do all wet well, convert the whole thing to wet well, put submersibles in, and then pump, have that be your regional, because it's an existing structure, depending on what the wet well capacity is, and then pump down Gills Neck Road. But you're not at that stage yet because of the discussions.
Well, it sounds like you need to think this through in options, you know, like, if you're gonna go to the county, then we're doing option 1. If you're going not to the county, we have option 2 or 3.
With going to the county, there were 2 options that
I
were
understand
considered.
that, but,
One of them was pumping 4 and 8 and tying them together.
yeah, well,
But then the consideration became, with the tight space and the in-town location of 4, leaving 4 alone, or, you know, upgrading it to meet the city side, and pumping to 8, and putting a whole new pump station in 8 on higher ground, and using that as the pump forward.
but without.
I don't think we're tight on space there, that's, I keep hearing that.
We're not gonna
because-
decide that today,
But-
we're
but
not
wait-
gonna
but
draw it
wait-
out
wait a minute,
today,
Bob.
we're not gonna estimate it today. I think we need to maybe clarify some options with some experts, press, and Tom, and ask GMB to sort of start to
Let me
calculate.
just clarify, I don't think we're tight on that site. That site includes where the bike racks are. That's our site, that whole thing. And we could put a pretty good sized building,
No, and I agree,
pump station there.
it's just the location of it being in town at the gateway over the canal, you know.
Sometimes there are odor.
We've addressed that, but I still think
But if we have to replace pump station 8 because of where it lies anyway, the question is, do we make 8 the central and pump forward from the town over to 8?
Yeah, that was the present plan, as I remember.
Right.
But I still think we should go
for the town.
for the whole system to go there. That seems to be the better space. You can build a nice pumping station there. They build them in town all the time.
So you can see how our conversations kind of evolved and snowballed, so.
I think we need to put a game plan forward, because we are talking about this and we're not making progress. And I recognize there are lots of other externalities, but, deciding how we're gonna pump forward to wherever we pump to. So is it reasonable to have the request for the January 22nd meeting to bring a detailed set of options with costs or estimated costs or pros and cons?
It would all be on a very high conceptual level. I mean, there's a lot to go into that sort of an analysis.
Well, can we ask for February?
I mean,
Why don't you come back to us and tell us how long it's gonna take?
and while Charlie's coming up, I mean, like I said, we looked at getting a price to get a dedicated bypass pump that's set up. The only thing is you would probably want to do a permanent bypass connection into the wet well instead of just having it an open wet well where you would just dump the suction line in. Your other
That
option.
defeats the whole odor control.
So you'd have to do a more permanent there, or your other option is to purchase the backup generator, which we did discuss in the past, but the only thing is that generator's been sitting there for 2 years and hasn't moved, so do you wanna spend $54,000? At the time, because it's a Delta Y configuration, they wanted $54,000 for the used one that's been sitting there for 2 years, and I believe the exact replacement was $64 for a new one. But the 60 kW doesn't support how I understand it, the 60 kW doesn't support, which is why they were sizing 100 kW for the ultimate station, which I have a report from Keystone that says 100 kW is the generator, which we got a price on, which is $180,000.
Well, can we ask for clear options?
Yeah.
So that somebody who doesn't know where pump
And we-
station 4 is
Oh, yeah.
could understand this, and not pricing, not all the way to Tom's thing, but say, if we're pumping to Wolf Neck, this would be smarter. If we're not pumping to Wolf Neck and treating at the current site, this,
It muted you.
at pump station 1, you do this, and pump station 4, you still have 2 options.
To your point, I think that's a good approach, that we would identify at least 4 options. It sounds like there might be more,
Fine, I
5 or
can handle
6, but I don't
6.
think any more than 6. But then what we could do is put together the cost to study all that and have that work being done, because I don't know what your time frame is with making your decision on the treatment facility, but
We don't either.
you want to have your options at least shovel ready in terms of your planning, so that when you make that decision, you can say, this is the one we're going to go with.
This would not be wasted.
Now, I mean, I'm really disappointed that DNREC wouldn't offer the planning grant, 50/50 matching grant, because that's what we went after for just what you're talking about. I don't think we had these other options in there, but because I don't understand what the planning grants are for if they're not for a preliminary engineering study. But I think they really want to start using this planning advance money, because it locks, like you said, it locks the project into future SRF loan funding, which that's what they're in the business of doing, providing that kind of funding.
So, a question about the SRF funding. If we agreed to the funding, but didn't really want it, could we just pay it back quickly and not incur the loan? Are there any?
But the planning advance money that you get?
Yeah.
Probably there's some, I don't know exactly how that would work, but there is probably some path to doing that.
Yeah.
I'm assuming there's gonna be a document in there that's similar to a binding commitment, which
Yeah.
would say you're binding yourself to a process of not only doing the advance on the planning, but also moving forward with a project, and if
Yeah.
not, I don't know if there's a penalty or some catch-all. We've never done one that was this process before.
There's some specifics to the grant. It's like, it says, you know, if you don't go with the SRF loan, you have to repay that. But then there's also a secondary step of going to referendum, and if the referendum fails by any means, then they would forgive that loan. I don't know all the specifics of that secondary path, but, you know, you would have to go to a referendum to accept that SRF loan.
I would say you would pay for it as an expense on your O&M, and then decide from there where you go.
So you'll come back to us with the,
I mean, I think we can probably come back, I'm throwing Ben under the bus, but at least by the February meeting with the options and the study cost.
Oh, getting back to the generator though, I mean,
Okay.
Austin, about how much have we spent renting that generator? We probably could have owned it several times over by now.
$1,700 a month times however long the generator's been there.
In this past year, we spent roughly $23,000.
So,
It's just this past.
Just this
That's
past
been
year.
there how many years?
A little over 3,
no, it's not been there.
not 3?
No. we
Because
bought
it was
the
here when I
bypass.
got here, so that was 2 years ago. I don't know how long before that it was here.
No, I don't think it was long after, because we bought the bypass pump first, I think. I was when Rich was still here. So I would say roughly 2.
It's a new cost. Didn't get a price for that.
Well, at the time, you were in COVID, so it was 64,000 and a 12 to 24 month lead time. That's the generator. That's why Fidelity, when we had them price out a turnkey, one of the things they said was, oh, by the way, it's in stock. So in stock at $180,000. Now, the generator, the portable, you can obviously use for things other than, because it has a 220, it has a 480, what's it have, a 220, a 480, and what other connection does it have?
I know it has those, that I'm not sure.
It's got 3 separate connections, so you can run 3 different voltages. So
I
you
mean,
can,
what would it cost for us to buy that generator since it's been used so much? And I mean,
I think it was like, at the time, it was like 54,000.
I think Press is saying if you went to the dealer and said, hey, we've had this thing, is that what you're saying?
yeah.
You can buy a bypass pump for roughly the same as well, if we do a Godwin, was another option. That can be one of the options, either bypass pump or buying portable, because we can just go to Carter Cat and ask what they would want.
but a bypass pump of the size we would need for there,
Well,
can we use it anywhere else?
again, so if you buy that generator can't support both pumps. So if you're buying a bypass, you can buy a larger bypass, but then you're right, you're hitting a wall somewhere. It's just a matter of which wall you're hitting.
The bypass that we currently have can run about the same capacity as the 2 pumps together.
Correct. Then when you started talking about future
Yes.
flows, so your current bypass pump basically is a turnkey to what we have today. But if you look at future growth, that's when the bypass pump could potentially be overcome by growth.
And we have so many things in flux at this time, but we said that for the past 20 years.
Well, the wastewater treatment plant's been in discussion since 2022.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somehow we have to, it just bugs me that we're paying all that money for that generator.
We'll put it,
You're not alone.
we'll add it as an item, as an option.
All right, sorry for derailing us there.
Yeah, I had another question though,
Yes.
as you're going through what happened this last month. That, in the trains, the MBR area, you had a train that had a gate that didn't close fully. Has that been resolved?
So we got into the train and we assessed it. It looks like the gate is starting to bow. Essentially, there's a small gap in the top of the gate, roughly, I don't know, between ½ inch and an inch. And it looks like it's starting to pull away from the wall a little bit, which is allowing, when we try to close, it's still allowing something to come in. We got some photographs and we're assessing what the best way to go about fixing that would be. It might be a full replacement because it looks like it's it's not gonna be repaired, it's probably gonna have to be replaced.
How much does that affect the operation of that train?
The only thing that it would affect is the cleaning cycle, is the semi-annual cleaning cycles. So currently, the thought process is that until we can have it repaired, if we have to do a cleaning cycle, we would raise the level in the train higher to create a pressure so that instead of it flowing in, we don't generally fill the train all the way up during the cleaning cycle, which allows the influent to come through. So if we take it to a higher level, it should stop anything from coming in. I think that was about everything with the generator. Do we have any questions?
The only thing in the Viola report, do we know why the flow dropped off so much on the
Where are we at?
28th of October? I mean, it's just out of curiosity, I ask. Or am I just reading it?
No. I would have to go back and look. I'm not sure off the top of my head. There was a reason for it, but I'd have to go back and look to be definitive.
It's nothing negative, it just
No.
stood out, so if you want getting back to,
Absolutely.
okay.
One thing before you leave
Yes, sir.
is, I don't know if others have any trouble reading this, but it would be nice if you could make these, so we could read some of the numbers. I mean, I kind of defy you to go to, I'll hand you the page and you just read me the numbers up this column, but.
What page are we on?
Well, that's dissolved oxygen. Read the average column, just read up to the bottom.
For dissolved oxygen?
Yeah, the average.
So for waste sludge, WAS flow is 7.31. Total WAS flow daily was 212.77. Process aeration blower speed percentage, 43.65.
Okay, so good. Does the mayor do it?
I can get these. But I would say, you're sending this to an electronic file to them, right?
Yes.
So that's just a matter of printing it like this.
And that looks to be, because it looks like ours is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'd like to have your orientation, please.
But that's more from your side, though. He's sending the file to BPW to.
I don't care how it gets.
Put that request in, Sharon.
We get them directly from Viola, don't we?
Of what?
These reports.
They come from Inframark to us.
Oh,
As an electronic
Yeah,
file.
yeah.
yeah, I didn't know if we were getting them directly from Viola or not. Okay.
What happened in October that the maintenance budget was so much over, or maintenance spending was so much
So
over
we had,
budget?
one part of that comes back to the generator. So the generator bills come in and they're not consistent, so we actually paid 4 generator payments in 1 month, which came out to just under $8,000. We also had a mix-up, there was anything over a certain cap goes directly to Austin for approval, anything over 5,000, so we had a mixer repair that had to be done. It was, I believe, $7,200. The PO was cut by BPW, but the paperwork was sent over to us and it got processed and paid on our end.
And then a request, and this is another, trying to read the report. On the major maintenance expenses for the contract year, a lot of the lines are cut off and it doesn't go to a second line. You know, like HD Supply, there's an SC 4500 controller, 2 digital and 5 XMA VAC plug. And then LXV 525.99B, I don't know what comes after that, you know? And a bunch of the Hill ones as well.
Okay.
We don't get the whole lines.
Anything else for Inframark? All right, thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you.
So moving on now to the president's report. So there were two mayor and city council meetings in November and December, last Monday. We met with Rehoboth Beach and Sussex County staff in advance of the meeting with the commissioners, which took place on Monday, the 9th. So just briefly, where we are currently with the discussions with Rehoboth Beach is we've presented them with, we being Sussex County and Lewes, presented a high-level outline of a term sheet. They are going to mark that up, and they're going to vote on it next Friday, the 20th. And what we've asked for is a yay or nay to move forward so that we can start getting their team, our team, and Sussex County's team, and the respective lawyers engaged in drafting an actual final agreement. So right now, we're still in standby, and we should have more information after the 20th. And hopefully, Santa Claus will deliver. And then Austin and I attended the ARPA funding meeting for the city, and
We have a meeting on that tomorrow.
yes, that's right, tomorrow morning at 9, I think. Yeah, so we hope to have more information on, with respect to that. The city may have some extra money. If they do, if they don't, you know, we're not in competition with anyone else, but we just wanted to make sure that, you know, the city understood that we would put that, any money we got, to the water tower project. Austin, would you like to?
Yeah. So just following suit with Tom, the canal crossing project is continuing to move forward. There were some slight delays due to equipment malfunctions, but they're continuing to work expeditiously. We thought that the pipe was gonna be online, before the Christmas holiday. It's not. We're hopeful that the pipe will be pulled before the Christmas holiday, but we also don't wanna jinx it. So the crews are working, as hard as they can to continue to push the project forward, and they also know the urgency on our side. The BPW also awarded the 1 million gallon water tank contract to CB&I. We're working on contract approvals and signatures. So hopefully in the next week or two, we'll have those ratified, and sent over, and then we'll provide a copy to the city, under the ARPA, agreement that we have to show that we have allocated everything.
Austin, back on the, no work started on the American Legion Road. Is that
They are actually starting
waiting?
No, they have not started as of
Tuesday?
today.
What's, yeah,
Monday or Tuesday.
Monday or Tuesday, they're gonna do the wet tap on the 12th. And they are gonna start coming back towards American Legion.
It's all surveyed
yeah.
as of last week, but it's not, and just staying on the canal crossing, Spring Associates is doing the drilling. They have been, you know, in spite of unforeseen problems, have been diligent at keeping us informed and keeping the project moving. So I really want to say, you know, thank you to Spring Associates and Teal. They've been, as far as I can see so far, a very, very good contractor to work with. And they are at about 600, well, it should be over that, 700 feet in by this point. And expect to hopefully start pulling pipe Tuesday or Wednesday of next week.
Yep.
Thank you for keeping us up to date.
The other piece, so work continues to press forward on the common header project. They actually got ODW's approval to operate today. Yes, because they had the approval to operate and they had the bacteria test come back. So they tied in well number 5, did all the internal piping with well number 5. So kind of a milestone, because that was probably the most nerve-wracking part of this, is tying in that one well into the new common header. Just as an update, the offices upstairs are nearly complete. Douglas and Company is doing kind of like final touches. They got some trim work. We got all of our approvals from the fire marshal and from the City of Lewes with CO. So those probably will be buttoned up, and you'll see office furniture up there. So we'll start moving stuff around. Department of Energy did decline the request for the AMI submission from AMP, which, I included our project. Staff is looking at other options to kind of come back to the board, hopefully in the future, both a DEMEC option and also a separate option, just for comparison, so you can see kind of what's out there. Just for context, the other option is being used by other municipalities that are local, so we're hopeful to see kind of how they're liking it if they go actually and implement before we do, but also talking to them and see why they made their decision.
Did we get any feedback on why we've been turned down twice?
There was an overwhelming amount of applications and not a lot of money is the short answer. Even on the first, when we got denied the first time, we modified the application to fit the narrative for the second round, but we just did not win. So we'll continue and look at different options, and we'll circulate that back to the board. And Kim will head that up with the discussions at DEMEC too, because Scott did mention about coming back and having a discussion and presentation in the future. We attended the Rehoboth Beach meeting, like Tom had stated. We're working with DHSS on the $1 million supplemental funding for the water tower project. Sharon and Vaughn had been have a table at the front of the office to work on all lead and copper items, so you can come into the office, work with them on any sort of testing that is requested. You'll get bottles, you'll go and collect a sample, and then I believe they bring it back to the office, and then we handle everything else. Inframark, it was Robin and myself visited Cox Creek with Inframark on October 25th, which is another MBR facility, just to see kind of how they operate, see what they do differently. It was eye-opening. It's a very big plant, but it's interesting to see how others operate and see where you could do better, things that they do good that we struggle with. We also secured planning grants with the help of GMB for 4th Street and Hornkill on the drinking water side. We also moved 260 tons of chicken manure to satisfy our NIPD's permit. So that's a requirement as part of our nutrient offset. So we ended up moving 260 tons from the Inland Bays watershed, which was outside of Millsboro, to a mushroom farm in Pennsylvania. So enjoy your mushrooms. I'm trying to think, I thought there was another one that I had. Yeah. I think that's all I have, unless something comes to my mind. But I do want to take this time just to thank everybody for their support over the last 8.5 years. It's bittersweet for me because obviously, we're closing this chapter and moving on to the next chapter, and it's not easy when you go through that because you feel like you let people down when you're making a move like that. But I appreciate it. It's been awesome, and you have a great team here to support everybody. And I wish you guys the best. And again, I came here at 22 and knew nothing about utilities, and I'm sitting here today, so I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Austin. And I think speaking for the entire board, you know our feelings. All right. So, Kim, Finance Manager's report.
So I don't have too much, I just have October. Overall, we're overperforming from the budget. Our revenues are over budget, our expenses are coming under budget. However, there was a loss in market value for our investments, which did put electric as underperforming. And that was the culprit of that. Everything else looks good for electric. For our year-to-date, same kind of story, that we're overperforming. Revenues are, our bottom line is just over double of what was projected. And for our cash graphs, we did move $1 million to our money market account, which brings our cash reserve shortfall to less than $1 million. So I'm hoping to close that gap by the end of this fiscal year.
All the work that you're doing with the finance committee, Richard, do you see some of those like goals for cash reserves drastically change?
I think the policy as a whole needs to be looked at.
Yeah, I would agree,
That's
yeah,
what I'm hearing.
yeah.
But can you think that maybe it's gonna have to jump a lot? Do you have any feel for what might end up being?
Specifically, I think it's our capital improvements. We need to look at how that's set up. It's set up off of the budget, and we're taking out everything that we're financing. So we actually need to really concentrate on what we're financing, what we're gonna pay out of pocket, what we can afford to pay out of pocket, and what our debt is gonna be, and have that set up instead of just 30%.
Our goal is to take that healthy cash reserve and to invest it so that it's returning funds to then reinvest into the system, and not necessarily, I mean, this is the prime example. You do the 4th Street project, and then you're doing 4th Street and Park. And the purpose of that was to extend your backbone and then start and look at every street from there on. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go through the process of going and taking a loan out, because you're investing your money to return what you need to be able to fund what your capital budget is. Now, obviously, there's projects, you get into the $5, the $6, the $7 million projects, it's a different animal, but that's the goal.
Well, it sounds like that committee is really doing well, so congratulations. We're getting there.
Can I ask a question?
Sure can.
So, compared to last,
Mm-hmm.
your revenue is up almost 25%. Some of that is, there's a big increase in water. Do you know why that is?
Is it
Our rates went up by 18.5%.
that was the last year of large increases, which were
Yes.
approved in 2022.
Rate increases?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So, are we pumping a great deal more?
From like a production standpoint, I wouldn't say you're pumping more. I would say you're holding, in theory, yes, but you're holding your demand longer throughout the season. So where you would start to see shortfalls in your October timeframe, you're starting to push more into the November and December with mild temperatures. And you have a very large demand on irrigation. So every home that connects in, 9 chances out of 10, they have manicured lawns with irrigations that are tied in. And if it's inside the city, there's the requirement to be hooked in for irrigation usage.
I can give you a comparison of yearly pulls for the well.
And if you want, and
It seems, somewhere else in here I found we're pumping about 13 million gallons a day.
no, not a day. No, you're doing roughly 2 to 2.2 in the peak season. Sometimes you go to 2.4. Yeah, we can get you, like, what we can do is we can do a running average of, like, on our waterworks report, we can see how much we're pumping. And then if we can also break it down by irrigation based off gallons billed too.
And with this dry weather we've had for the
I mean-
past several months, that's really, I'm sure, increasing our flow.
All right. Another thing I saw was we paid the investment advisor, is that monthly or quarterly?
Quarterly, 81 basis points.
I had a question about the Sussex County sewer rates. How much more would we be getting if they were paying us the going rate? What are we giving up in terms of for goodwill?
If you're comparing it to a standard residential rate,
Yeah,
it'd be a little over 2 times
to know.
for comparison. And the adjustment, I just forwarded Kim and Robin, the adjustments made at the end of January, beginning of February, CPIU based off Wilmington and Philadelphia. So there'll be I believe they're at like $2.90 something cents, so that adjustment will probably put them over 3. And
For
that
Sussex or for
for Sussex.
Sussex?
Do we know the number that Sussex County is paying Rehoboth for treatment?
Totally different, because they're paying a portion of the
I recognize
expenses.
they're paying 42% of the loan, but I'm just wondering the commodity fee.
I don't know if they're paying commodity because they're splitting O&M expenses.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
It's a completely, all right, never mind. All right, anything else for Kim? All right, then we'll move on. First item, old business. Open forum, general discussion on a 6-month review of impact fees. Austin, Kim, and Robin.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of synopsis it, but Kim can go through the math. At the last meeting, what we discussed, and I want to say Barbara may have requested it, it may have been Bob too, but it was a visual to see when we were talking about a 2.62% increase from when we adopted the new impact fees, which was raised based off CPIU, what that impact would look like, so you guys could see that for the budget for the remaining year, just for reference. And Kim, if you want to.
I mean, he pretty much summed it up. I did it based on the current budget of what's remaining and what that effect would have been. And then I did if the overperformance continues throughout the year, because I did it based on September, which was second quarter, so it was half the year. So it would be about 15,000 for the current budget, and it would be close to 23,000 for if we continue to overperform as we have the first half of the year.
And again, we haven't even had the new rates in effect for a year, so from our level, we recommend just sitting back, getting through a year, seeing what it looks like, and then adjusting if you guys see fit.
So, just so I can, so we've been getting more requests for, or more applications that have impact fees in the first 6 months of the year than we had been expecting.
We have gotten more impact fee revenue than what was budgeted, as I budgeted over 12 months.
So not for, like, it's not saying that, oh, well, we know May's gonna be a heavy month because we don't know when COs are coming or requests for services are coming.
Right, but it's independent from the impact rate that we raised. It's the number that's gone up.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to, yeah, so having only 6 months runtime seems like it's too short to,
Yeah, it was a large increase because you didn't raise it since 2002 for water. Yeah, so that was the first time it was raised since 2002.
Impact fees are paid by the developers.
Developer or homeowner, depending if an
homeowner.
empty lot did not have services prior.
So we're giving up about $23,000.
or homeowner if they upsize their service.
Yeah, if you run into that situation.
And I will say with how our cash reserve policy is set up, we are performing much better with our capital funds than we are with our operating, which this is included in our capital funds. What we actually have versus our requirement.
So I guess we should put this on the agenda for 6 months from now?
You would just do it budget season.
But, yeah.
That's how you would do it.
Okay. Item 9, open forum general discussion of the transfer of Mitchell Corners Development Agreement to Tamarack. Austin and Mr. Hoffman.
I'll do the first shot. Mike can help me out. The long story short is, a couple of months ago, we signed the development agreement with Mitchell's Corner LLC. Mitchell's Corner LLC ended up starting to do some of the work, some of the Del Dot improvements as part of their site plan. And they ended up selling it to another entity, which is a mixture of Cahavanian and Tamarack, but right now it would be Tamarack Land would be the ones taking over the development agreement. So there's a provision within the development agreement that speaks to successors, which Mike can add clarity to. Essentially what this is doing is, this is confirming kind of the no objection to the transfer of the development agreement obligations from one entity to another entity, which includes all of the bonding requirements and any, like in this example, there was a cash bond posted for a small bit of work that was part of the Del Dot. That's now gonna be posted by Tamarack, or will be posted, or has to be posted by Tamarack, along with any other provisions, would be the $50,000 escrow, the bonding for phase 1 and phase 2.
That was well said. I mean, the development agreement requires the board's consent prior to any assignment of the agreement. The purpose of that consent requirement is to, quite frankly, be able to confirm that your bonding remains in place and that there's a clean transfer. That has been confirmed, and so if the board would be ready for action, I do have a recommended motion, which includes the conditions relative to actually providing the money for the escrow and the bond. And I can read that when and if the board's ready.
We're ready.
All right, so the suggested motion would be a motion to consent to Mitchell's Corner LLC's request to partially assign the September 9, 2024 development agreement concerning the Phase 1 water distribution improvements to Tamarack Land Mitchell's Corner LLC as outlined in the December 6, 2024 correspondence from John Hoffman. This consent is conditioned on receipt of the deposit and bond outlined in the December 6, 2024 letter. You can just say so moved, and I have one other thing after you handle the motion.
Motion
So moved.
on the second?
Second. Any discussion? So just to point out for the record, no relation on John Hoffman, but he is, I see, online if there are any questions.
I had a question. Tamarack is based in, is it Minnesota?
So that's what the address is.
Yeah, do they have local presence?
I do not know.
I don't know if Mr. Hoffman is listening and wants to address it.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you, John.
Oh, hey, hi, everyone. Yes, Tamarack does have local presence. They're doing another job in the county for Cahavanian as we speak. So they do have boots on the ground and will be overseeing the land development with Corrado as their contractor.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? So 5-0. Thank you very much. Open forum, general discussion on the wastewater treatment plant, long-range plan. I think I already gave that in the beginning of it, so we'll move forward. We will, I promise everyone, have a town hall workshop in the February timeframe, once we have more clarity on which way we're going. So I know it's been a long time, but February timeframe, we will do it this time. New business, item 11. Open forum, general discussion on the BPW's annual donation to the Lewes Fire Department. Austin and Kim.
Yeah, so we provided, I believe, the minutes were provided from the previous meeting. If not, the short and sweet is that we donated $25,000 last year. It was a 3-2 vote. And I believe the city's doing 75,000, if I'm not mistaken, or that's what they've
done in the past.
historically done. And so putting it on the table for you guys to discuss, we did, I believe Sharon did request additional information from the fire department as it relates to financials. I do not believe we received them.
And there's some kind of state,
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
they're
ask.
examining it. That's why I would say, like, in the past, we've done any of that. There's been discussion of whether we wait until we see what comes out of the state. I don't know what that, when they expect a report to come from the state in terms of the change and how they're funding and all that.
And when do you typically put that on an agenda for a vote or in the budget?
It's part of our budget. Yeah, we budget, so we usually approve that in February, March.
So you don't cut a check till after the fiscal year? Yeah, yeah.
And we went up from 50 to 75, 3 years ago? Roughly 3 years ago, COVID, kind of, yeah. And we have been asked for more. Like they've made it very clear that they expect us to fund about 20 to 25% of their operation.
It's a large number.
That's about $600,000 to $700,000.
The state is doing something, right? You don't know where it
Currently
is?
they are, and they're also looking, like I said, I guess a new formula, but I don't know much about how that's gonna pan out.
So this has always been on the agenda for December, because I believe we give the donation at their Christmas party. So it's completely up to you if you wanna keep it in December, if you wanna wait, like, the mayor had said, for any sort of reports. We just typically bring it on, the agenda during the December board meeting, so.
Yeah, the other thing that's new is the Sussex County Council has always been an issue around getting the splits there and how that's weighed out, and there's been quite a turnover there in the county council as well, so, that's just for information purposes.
So, even if the state is gonna reconsider their funding mechanisms as we all read, that's not gonna happen anytime soon. So that could be something we consider next year for next year's budget. I will go back to my standard yearly speech, which is we at the BPW are totally dependent upon the fire department and the ambulance department for keeping our people safe. And we have them at high-risk jobs. And I would ask that we up our giving to $50,000, knowing how much shortfall, having seen information from the fire department, how much of a shortfall they're under and how much pressure. And frankly, in the long term, I don't know how volunteer fire departments are gonna survive. So.
As usual, I'm going to disagree because I don't think it's the place for us to make charitable contributions using our customers' money. They should be making their contributions as I do every year, and I don't think that charitable contribution should be a function of the BPW.
And I would counter that with they're providing a service, which is health and safety to our employees who are working in confined environments, up on poles with electricity, at the wastewater treatment plant with chemicals. And so this isn't like donating to Lewes and Bloom, which we all may agree to and we make donations to. This is to protect our employees.
Be disagreeable, I'll disagree with Barbara. Tom, but the newest person, Austin said the vote last year was 3-2. Was it on the issue of charitable contributions or was there some other issue?
There was a lot of questions from Earl on the financial piece. So a lot, I think, of what's being done now as part of this process that the state's handling. I actually, Mike, maybe you recall, I don't know if we've ever had a year where it's 5-0 because I know Mr. Kennedy felt the same way.
There's always been a split on this issue. Along those lines of charitable versus, what is the purpose? And is this something the board should step into?
Roughly, historical, I believe that the number has always hovered around 50. There may have been a year of a 45, and last year was a 25.
Did we use fire or ambulance service at all this past year? Because I know when my husband was alive, I would always make a larger donation when we used their services. I would make an extra donation, and that could be a consideration as well.
We had one incident where we had a chop saw kickback where we used EMS that I know of. That would be the only one.
And
Yeah.
I agree that, I don't think we should be using our ratepayers' money for major contributions. I mean, I think they do a lot of service. I think you should contribute something every year and have it every year. I think 25 is roughly 30 million. I think we have to be very careful with our ratepayers' money. I was attacked what we gave so much during COVID. But I had a few that said you should be using the money that way. So it was a good cause with COVID. There's a lot of demand for it.
I would just,
30,000 might be a reasonable.
I'll just, last pushback and then we'll take a vote. This is the only charitable, quote-unquote, cause we give to.
Isn't there a policy or some written commitment to that effect that the fire department is the only one that is
It's in a policy or in the bylaw?
In a policy, yeah.
So,
for entitlement,
Right.
at least?
so, yes, and that's my point, is that it was carved out because it's a service, not a charity. So with that, I will stop. So, you have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we contribute 30,000 this year.
Second?
Second.
Okay, on the question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. And we're opposed for different reasons. So what I would ask to the public is, please donate to the fire department and the ambulance. It's easy to do, it's online, and they provide a very valuable service. They are mostly completely volunteer, and actually, I think as individuals, if you don't contribute, you get a bill after the fact that is for the ambulance service. Yeah, if you contribute before, then you don't.
That's actually something they let us know at the one meeting. There's two envelopes that they sent around. One is for the ambulance contribution and one's for fire, so. Yeah.
Just to clarify for the record, that was a 3-2, right? Motion passed
3-2.
3-2.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right, item 12. Open forum, general discussion on allocating ARPA funds received from the City of Lewes. Austin,
So,
myself, and Mike.
yeah, Mike may help me out with this one, but the synopsis is we made a presentation to city council for any additional ARPA funds they may have that they feel wrong word. They feel that they would allocate to the Board of Public Works. Yes, poor choice. And so what we wanted to do is, knowing that discussion would be on Friday, we had put this on the agenda just in case it happened on Monday. And so if it happens on Friday and anything is allocated to us, The idea here would be to essentially make a motion that if any funds are received, that it would be allocated to the water tower project, which would be included in that contract. Mike, you may be able to help me out with it.
No, that was well said. I also have a proposed motion, if and when the board is ready to go. But the idea here is we are sensitive to the timing concerns, and so because the board's meeting's happening first, we wanted to give the flexibility that should the city award an amount, whatever that is, that the board would approve allocating that to the water tower so that it can be under contract before the end of the year.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing I was gonna add, is that the $900,000 of ARPA funds has already been committed to the contract, and any additional funds would be committed to the contract and will be under contract. So the timing issue of allocated by 2024 and spent by 2026, we can completely meet with whatever monies came through.
And we appreciate the 900, and if anything comes out.
We might have enough for you to like rent the porta potties for the
Let the record know.
Oh, good.
And I have a motion if you want. So it would be a motion to approve a request for additional ARPA funds from the City of Lewes in an amount to be determined by the City of Lewes City Council, and to allocate said funds, if any, to the Lewes BPW Water Tower Project.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Appreciate that. That'll make it easier for us in our deliberations to know what it's going towards. Appreciate it.
All right. Open forum, general discussion on selecting a contractor to install electrical conduit on Ocean View Boulevard from 4th Street to Canary Drive.
So as the board knows, we had, the city is actually doing a project where they're gonna mill and overlay Ocean View Boulevard they're actually going from Town Road all the way back to Canary Drive. As part of that, we already did a conduit project from Town Road to 4th Street on Ocean View and back down Bronson Courts. This project would essentially be to put conduit in, and I want to preface, there's no conduit in there now. All of it's direct bury, and we're starting to see signs of wear and tear. Couple faults, a couple failures where we've had to go in and splice. And so this is on here so that we can do our work ahead of anything that's being done for the city stuff. So we went ahead and got 3 proposals from 3 separate contractors. We've worked with several of them in the past. One was Tuckahoe, one was ULCS, and one was AccuTrench. Same type of, essentially a price per foot. We had AccuTrench come in at $25 a foot. Tuckahoe was at $33 and ULCS was at $26.62. Both of them included restoration for any disturbance that they have. And so what we're asking for is, the recommendation is to go with AccuTrench, which we've used before, at $25 a foot. Timing, I'm thinking that timing is going to be after the first of the year, probably in the January, February, and I don't think it's going to, I think they're going to be wrapped up well before any work's done as it relates to the city project, which we're doing some of the stormwater work for.
So how much other direct bury cable do we have
Throughout the city?
throughout the city?
You have Bay Breeze, which that's going to be a project in the future. Cape Shores is direct bury.
That's direct bury, that's not conduit?
Yes, Cape Shores is direct bury. And I want to preface, there's not necessarily a bad thing when you come in direct bury, but what we're seeing, we're looking at areas where we're seeing higher number of faults, where we've had to go in and we've either struggled, we did buy some better locating equipment, but for us, conduit makes it very easy because we can pull and replace very quickly. I want to also add that the work that's being done here is simply putting conduit in. We are procuring the wire, we are pulling, and we are doing all the terminations.
When you say we, it's BPW.
Correct, all of our staff, yeah.
So, and this conduit goes in the road, and that's why we wanted
There
to,
will be crossings in several
Crossings.
locations, but they'll do the normal utility mark out. They'll work with RET and making sure, and they can work with GMB as well, to ensure that wherever they cross, that, you know, we have documentation for it.
And as we discussed earlier, in prior meetings, we will go out for a general contract next year by the foot,
Yeah,
So we
we'll
don't
probably
have
do,
to-
yeah, like a TNF.
go through.
Also, Tom and I were talking Monday night about Chantel and the fact that they're gonna be bearing cable. Are you're coordinated with them on that trenching?
So one of the things was whether or not it would be included as part of the city's project, like as a line item. The tough part is that how many contractors are gonna put in as a sub to the paving contractor?
We asked them the question, they had a government relations guy there, and he said that they're, I mean, we can give you the contact, but that they're used to piggybacking with, and it was intimated by our side that they might contribute financially, frankly.
I mean, we can coordinate with them to see if that's something that they would wanna piggyback off of using. I mean, AccuTrench is a good contractor. We've used them before. I mean, from a price perspective, it's a pretty good price for 3-inch conduit. I don't think that they're gonna need 3-inch for what they're doing. I'm assuming they're not gonna need 3-inch. But Robin has talked with
But if they're gonna be
Chantel.
my point is why trench it twice? I mean, if you're gonna be in there doing this, you know,
It's all directional drill, so
Yeah.
they're not gonna trench anything. They're gonna set the drill up, they'll shoot one way, shoot another way, and we'll make terminations in all their transformers. So we can mention something to them. I think Robin's got a lot of contacts for Chantel. And
because
just
my only
mention,
thing is too, like, I get it's low impact, and even what they showed to us, what we should expect. I mean, if you gotta go in there and then you're setting up with the same damn equipment, like, 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Still, it's, you know, it's fatigue.
yeah, we can mention something to them.
Could I ask a question about the
Yep,
bid?
you're probably gonna ask me the question on, it says restoration on the front and it says no restoration on the back. Yeah, their standard is to not do restoration. We had them add that in and we will confirm that that is correct.
It's in the scope, but then they have in the
Because
back.
we
that-
had them add to the scope because it's not their standard to do.
Okay,
Good lawyering, right, Mike?
Yeah,
okay.
and we'll confirm all that prior to any sort of execution. And like I said, we'll reach out to Chantel as well.
But they understand that, and they're not gonna change their price because.
No, we confirmed with that, and same with the dates. The dates are a little bit lagged, but we confirmed that the price is still good.
so they'll cross out number 4 in its entirety.
Yeah, we'll make sure that that's done.
Okay.
So we'll
So
need
do we have a motion? Or can I have a,
Second.
so just to be clear. So we have a
Yeah,
motion to
actually,
approve
thank you. I was asleep at the switch here. Robin's got me.
Do we have a motion to approve the AccuTrench proposal for $25 a foot, including restoration?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
that contact. Just,
The guy who showed up there, yeah. He was like an intergovernmental relation. That was he's used to dealing with like you guys and us.
yeah, last name for.
Austin was, Robin was already showing he's ready for the job. He's on it.
Open forum, general discussion, and BPW participating in the state's mandated parental leave program. So Austin and, well, I guess Chris is not here, so.
I'm gonna take, Chris is online. I'll take the,
Hello, Chris.
I'll take the first stab, and Mike, you can fill me in, because I know you had talked with Lauren. So the short answer is this is a statewide program that all employers within a certain number of employees would have to participate in. In our case, we fit between the 10 and 24, which means we have to provide and fund a essentially like a parental leave, our parental paid leave program. And so what we did is we did two things, and there's two separate votes you're gonna be taking here. One is to participate in the state program, and I'll kind of add details to that, and the second one is the funding piece. So on the state program, there are two options. You can either go with the state or you can go to private party. We did both, and the cheaper option was to go with the state option, which you'll see in your packet on the second page. Flip one more, press, and it's on the back. Yeah, keep going. That calculation, so it's roughly, if you, I want to preface, so if you take, yeah, they assumed 20 employees, and that eliminated myself and George, because George was retiring, and obviously I'm resigning. So the estimated cost, and I did confirm with Chris, she used, and Chris, if she wants to chime in, she can, but she used all of our current salaries and wages to calculate this figure. So this is gonna be pretty accurate, minus any changes that we make, obviously during budget season, but roughly $4,700 is the total cost into the project, or to the program. The other option was to go private, and private was about $5,100. So obviously this is a bit cheaper. So our recommendation based off the cost is to do the state program. That's motion number one. Do we want to do that motion before we go in the second?
I think just to clarify one thing, so all of these estimates, this is a new requirement, and so we've got to see it in action before we can really have too much confidence on where these numbers are. All of these calculations, at least on the government side, are estimates based on the calculator that is on the government website. So, but they make clear it's an estimate. So the information that's being provided is the information that's available, but we have to see how this shakes out to see where that actually comes down. But the first question, to Austin's point, is everybody is required to provide the benefit. The question is simply, do you stay with the state program or do you opt out of the state program and go with a private provider? Staff is recommending that you stay with the state program. That's the first question. Then we'll get to the second question, which is cost sharing.
Just background, how does this work? So an employee becomes a parent and?
So the state pays, I believe, up to 12 weeks. I don't think it's at 100% pay, but they pay up to 12 weeks for paid leave for anybody that would, fall underneath the parental leave program, which would be a mother, father, so, et cetera. And what we're doing is you have to pay into it for 1 year, but the program physically doesn't start for employees until 2026.
Hold off on the baby, man.
Yeah.
So that gives you like March of 2020.
We sort of think they should be married, at least the fathers, but
Does it have to be continuous? Like you have to take the 12 weeks off like at one fell swoop, or can you go?
It's a great question. I don't know if Chris knows the answer to that. I don't know if the state knows the answer to that yet. It's a state program, so everybody has to participate in it. Chris, I don't know if you know the answer to that question.
Well, it says here, 12 weeks in a 12-month period. Does that answer the question?
I believe you're allotted 12 weeks in a 12-month period.
Yeah.
It must not have to be continuous.
probably need to have another kid before you can
But you
have
have to
another
use it,
12.
yeah.
Sound like it.
So the truth is, we have no choice whether we're in it. You've identified that there's a state option which is less than the other options, and I'd like to make a motion that we join the state program forthwith.
And the option is.
Robert,
do
there's a
we-
motion, so first we have to get a second, then we have a
Okay.
discussion.
I'm not sure what he's suggesting though.
So once
You can second that, begin discussion.
Okay, I'll second it then.
So now,
My question is whether you're proposing that we fully fund it, the BPW?
That's the second question. Question.
that's, yeah.
There's two questions on the table. First one is to participate in the state.
Sorry, I was out of the room.
Oh, no, you're fine.
So my only question is that, and I recognize that the state is these are just estimates, but should we really be estimating on 20 employees, or should we estimate it on 21? Because even though you're leaving,
You can slice this pig 7 different ways a Sunday, because as soon as you hire somebody else, you're gonna add that on, so.
Round numbers, it is How much?
$4,700.
$4,700.
Yeah.
Okay. and
Every
we have
employee
a-
you add, it will go up.
Yeah, so,
It's approximate.
Correct, it's the same way either way, whether you do private, it's actually, if you look at both of them, they break it down by like a percentage of pay. And the parental leave is 0.32% on the state program, and the private program is 0.343%. So that's your delta between the two.
So then, any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right,
So then the next question, so now that you know you're in the state program, then the next question becomes cost sharing. And so,
I will lead this one off again. So based off that number, the $4,700 roughly, my understanding is the board participates at 50%. That's what is mandated, I believe, and that you can contribute more than 50%. Staff's recommendation, and we showed you as a 50-50 split so you could see what that looks like. Staff's recommendation is to cover it entirely and provide it as a benefit of employees, because our parental program essentially is FMLA. It doesn't offer any sort of paid leave. If you have to, it's like my wife, she had to take short-term disability. So our recommendation is to cover it as a whole in lieu of a 50-50 split to the employee.
I move that we cover it as a whole, as a benefit to our employees.
just on the question, not that I'm opposed, do we know what others are doing around us?
I am not entirely sure, because we are probably, when you look at number of employees, we are probably one of the only, from a municipality standpoint, that fit in 10 to 25. So once you go above 25, then you have to offer, there's two other programs that I believe you fall under, which then increase your cost. But we are talking just print.
Into this?
We obviously fall into that 50 and, yeah, so we're mandated.
You haven't addressed this yet.
I don't think it's part of this program, are we?
We are, but we are evaluating our options.
Okay, so we're still,
Lorraine, can you come up and enlighten us?
Lorraine McCabe, City Manager. That Shelby, our HR, is looking at the different options for this. We are looking at going private, which would delay when the costs kick in until January of '26.
And I want to preface, because we did talk to others that fit kind of like above 25, and it seems as if when you're above 25, it's economies of scale. When you take out additional policies, your costs reduce. So there are a lot that are going with a private option. So that was another municipality.
For us, it was cheaper to go private.
Yeah.
Well, we have a ways to go before we get there, so.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you.
Thanks.
thank you very much, Ellen, Lorraine. And so, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so we will cover 100%.
And one of the things we'll do is most likely we'll update the handbook, and we'll work with either RKL or a mixture of RKL and Mike's firm so that it reflects that.
All right, then moving on, item 15, open forum general discussion on the formal policy procedure. So, Mike, if I can ask you to kick this one off.
sure, so just very briefly, so this is trying to get in line with more best practice on how the board handles rulemaking essentially. So obviously is for a lot of what comes before you, it's normal, motion and then discussion and vote at the dais. When you're dealing with rulemaking, one of the proposal here is to be more in line with best practice, which formalizes a process of having a proposed rule in writing, an opportunity for discussion, opportunity for public comment, and publication of the same. So that's what the procedure that is in front of you would accomplish. I don't think that it's ripe for a vote tonight. I think the opportunity here is to introduce it, answer preliminary questions. If you want to let it marinate, mull it over. If you have any questions you want to send to me following the meeting, I'll be happy to address those, and the board, if it chooses, can take this up at a future meeting. But again, the idea here is to formalize a process on how rules are developed and implemented.
One question I had, Mike, is if we adopt this policy, will we then be going back and looking at all of our policies and reissuing them under this rule?
No, the recommendation would be kind of going forward. What you could do is, if you wanted, just as we did a few years ago, we revisited the compilation of policies. You can take a look at the compilation of policies and do a comprehensive update, and that through this policy, if you wanted to do that. I'm not recommending that here, but that is an option for the board.
We did a fairly extensive review of the policies.
Another question I had is, what do you mean by any franchise surface area?
Which section?
That was in the definitions section.
Yeah, so that's a standard definition. So wait, which one?
Number 6, service area. I wonder, do we have any franchise service?
So that's what your charter says. So that is taken directly from the charter, and that's your service area.
Okay.
Question about the public comments. So, public gives comments. First, go on, here's what we think we're going to do. Give comments. And the board then has the option to reject, approve, or revise the policy. And if they reject it, then that's rejecting the policy.
Right, so to summarize, the way that this would occur is any board member, member of staff can propose a rule or a revision to the rule. That proposal has to be in hand at least 10 days before the next regular scheduled meeting. That first discussion is purely, is this something we want to consider? If the board says, yes, we want to consider it, then it is posted and published for public comment. And so the public has an opportunity to weigh in and say, we think you should do X, we think it's good, we think it's bad, we think it would be better if you do Y. All those comments are then taken and considered at the board during a future board meeting. So when you're looking at that, you can look at the comments, you can say, yep, we like this, we don't like this, we're not going to do it, and then you can take action on as the board. So again, in that, you're kind of accepting, rejecting public comment, but at the end of the day, it's your discussion after being informed with all of that additional information. Is this a good rule? Is it a bad rule? How should it be changed? If you then approve, and so if you look at it and let's say you think it needs to be completely rewritten because of the feedback you received, you can then post it again for additional public comment, or you can say, no, we're just going to rewrite it and go forward. You have that discretion under the policy.
That's like rejection.
Correct, yeah. And then once you've adopted it, then it's approved from there.
Mike?
So if it's revised, I can understand that. If it's approved and none of the comments are included, it still flies, or is it the public have another chance? Wait a minute, you didn't include this, that, and the other.
No, it's no different than when you're at a meeting here. So when you're at a meeting, you can take public comment and you can consider and weigh that public comment. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't agree, but at the end of the day, you're taking an action as the elected board. And so, yes, so if you get the public comment and the board disagrees with the public comment and you approve it, it's an approved rule. And it's in the compilation of policies and it governs.
Mike, The first item on the procedures. So if I wanted to have policy brought up, I'd bring it to the general manager. Does it automatically go on the agenda to be discussed, or they should be on the subsequent general manager? Is that it?
No, so to be eligible, so in order for it to be placed, so the president still has authority to set the agenda unless overridden by the board
That's where I
rules.
was confused.
Yep,
Where
no.
it doesn't say anything about the president putting it on the agenda.
So it just, and so that's where, and we can clarify that further, Press, but that's what's meant by to be considered for placement on said meeting agenda. So it has to be in hand to be considered for placement, but you still have your rules on
It
how.
sounded to me like maybe just the general manager had to.
No.
No, it's the same as Mike said. You know, we adopted the policy that, you know, if two people wanted something on the agenda, it would go on the agenda.
And so, right, that policy remains in place. So what you could do, Press, is if you if you drafted a rule as a board member and you wanted it placed on the next agenda, you would have to get that to Austin at least 10 days beforehand. And you would have to confirm that either the president would put it on the agenda, and if the president's not gonna put it on the agenda, then you need at least another board member to agree with you. Then it goes on the agenda, yep.
Another question I had was, in procedure number 2, it appears that only written comments have to be submitted, have to be considered, rather.
I will make that clear if that's not the intent. So
Okay.
the intent here is during that period of time, obviously people are gonna have to submit written comments, but when you actually take the matter up, it's as any other board meeting, you would take whoever's here, they can offer comments. Yep.
Comments on this?
One wording comment. In number 6, if it's adopted, the notice of adoption, should it be of said policy or of said policy proposal?
If you adopt it, it's the policy,
Yeah.
it's not the proposal.
Right.
I land on said what did I land on? And that's where I landed, but
You said,
You said policy proposal.
it should be policy. I
Okay.
agree.
Question about 7,
No.
about 6.
Now that you can answer.
Listing the utilities. You have stormwater and drainage. Is it appropriate to have stormwater management drainage?
That's from the charter. So that's what how the charter defines your utility system.
That doesn't void the fact that we're managing runoff.
and in number 8, policy, I think there's supposed to be a comma after statement.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks. Now I don't have to send you comments.
All right, so we'll put this on the agenda for the 21st, is okay?
One second.
Oh,
22nd, right.
no, I moved it up to the 21st, I'm bringing my penguins with me. All right. That's 15. Open forum, general discussion on appointment of Kimberly Bellere to the DEMEC Board of Directors and Robin Davis as the DEMEC Alternative Director. So 16.
This is, the short answer is this is a procedure. Whenever you change DEMEC directors and alternative directors, you go through the process of confirming in a board meeting, and then that is sent along with the minutes to DEMEC. Again, I want to preface that can change anytime. You can change up alternative director and director at any time. But obviously, we have to go through this process. Kimberly, sitting as alternative director for the last 3.5 years, I think she'll do just fine stepping in as director, and then Robin will be death by fire hose. So I believe you have to read it by title only, and this is 24-009.
All right, do we have a motion to read by title only?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. President, members of the board, Resolution 24-009, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Board of Public Works of the City of Lewes regarding appointment of a director and alternate director for the Delaware Municipal Electric Corporation Board of Directors. Mr. President, members of the board, Resolution 24-009 has been read by title only and placed before the board for its consideration and adoption.
There a motion to approve the resolution, 24-009.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
We don't treat this as a policy that we have to comment, do we?
No, and under the policy, it wouldn't be.
Open forum and general discussion on a post-employment consulting agreement with Austin Colliman. So, as we had done with Darren before, to smooth the transition to the new management system or managers, we have written up an agreement to retain Austin for a period of 12 months, subject to either party unilaterally withdrawing. It would cover Austin. We would pay him a retainer of, God, $800, $800 per month for 8 hours worth of consulting services per month. And then any hours over that would be $125 an hour. And that is the main gist of it. I passed everyone out a copy of it.
It's just the one, so it is for a period of 1 year. And again, the
Yeah.
intent here is for the transition.
Right. But either party can shorten it.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So, with that, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve this consulting agreement with Austin Colliman
Second.
for 1 year.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So Austin, you're not getting away from us that soon.
And just for the sake, and I don't know if you mentioned it, Tom, but just for the record, this is consistent with the approach when the transition between Darren and Austin, so it's not reinventing the wheel.
All right, and board staff requests for agenda items for the next meeting?
I think we already discussed that, right? The undergrounding grant application, and there was something else.
Yeah, and I think we said we would put that in
February.
February's meeting.
Yeah.
I would ask that either in January or February, we invite the investment advisors to come and make a presentation, depending on how much time we need. But to say, this is the last 5 years. Indexes have done. And to review their fees and approach.
I think it's very appropriate. Richard, timeframe, do you think January is appropriate or February?
Yes.
All right, we'll let Richard do the research on that, but
Yeah, scheduling is not crucial, but they ought to come, and I would like to see the slides or presentation or so on ahead of time as part of the board package. If it's a board meeting. If it's a separate special meeting, then same thing.
Happy to be the second person to.
Okay. The policy and it's poll to the public. Sorry for the length of the meeting, but
So I've had nothing to do but be here today.
it has, it's our
My
end
name's
of year.
My name's Taylor Cameron. I live at 512 DuPont Avenue. You've all probably parked right in front of my house when you go to the farmer's market. I am coming here today because that's what came out of my tap this morning. I mean, you can pass it around if you like. It's not drinkable. It tastes like metal. I've lived in the house now since August 21st. Our fixtures are stained. Our dogs won't drink that water. I've spoken to my neighbors who have lived there a little longer. They're forced to use bottled water. They won't drink it. They won't cook with it. Their fixtures are stained. They've had to replace appliances in much shorter time than their expected life. And I understand that in the summer, there's a quote-unquote fix that sort of...
An automated flusher.
Yeah, at the end of DuPont Avenue in front of the Thomas Building that, masks the problem. But I'm really concerned. Long-term exposure to iron in your water can cause any number of significant health issues. It's toxic.
To certain individuals, but
To human beings. Large amounts of heavy metal and iron in your water can accumulate in the body and can be toxic. Yeah.
and I think you're aware, we are starting the project for 4th Street and
In the fall of 2026 at earliest.
well, the funding's been set aside, the design work is started. So we have the flusher, hydrant flusher in.
No, it's not there.
During the summer, because it runs across the road otherwise, and it's an ice hazard in the winter. So, Austin, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, and we talked earlier, and we had a very similar conversation, and we talked through some of the things that we're discussing now. Our guys, they'll flush it one time a week. The flusher was doing, I think, 3 or 4 times a day for reference, but we did get calls from the Fred Thomas Building about the concern of the ice across the street. You could come up with a more permanent solution, but you would have to pipe it underneath and tie it into a storm drain if you wanted to do that. So if it's something that you would want to consider, we can talk to our guys. But you would have to get underneath DuPont and go down to the nearest catch basin if you wanted to hard pipe it in instead of having to go across the road.
Where is the nearest catch basin? I'm trying to picture it.
I believe, if my memory serves me correct, it's all the way down almost at the intersection at Johnson, DuPont, and Burke.
No, it's at the entrance of the parking lot. It's where,
A little bit, yeah, okay, yeah,
it's
yeah,
at the
you're right, you're
entrance,
right.
so there's the playground, and then the entrance to the parking lot that is closest to the school, there is a
Yeah.
curb drain there.
Yep, you're right,
That's true.
I appreciate it.
Across the street, though, from the
Yes,
hydrant.
yeah, so you would have to come in and either core the back of that structure or come out and tie it in on the road.
Well, I certainly think it's something to look at.
Yes.
Because it is gonna be, the midterm before we can get to replace the pipes. So, we can't expedite that, so.
And that's just Fourth Street, right? That's not coming down DuPont.
So it's Fourth, it includes Park as it comes around to Johnson, but it stops right there at that intersection at Park and Johnson. So as Johnson turns and comes out to the intersection of Johnson, DuPont,
Painter,
yes,
Burton.
yeah, right there at that intersection, that's where it stops. That's the scope of the work.
Yeah, so that's 2.5 years away at the earliest. In the meantime, we can't drink our water. We pay the same that people who get potable water pay.
And should I say, a number of us have water filters.
Culligan's going to be there on Friday next week. But, I haven't had it tested. That's next. But I don't know. I feel like it's a problem that's been, the flow, whatever that is, the flusher, we didn't really notice it visually when we ran the water. We noticed it in the fixtures and in our laundry, staining clothes and that kind of thing. But now, since the flushing stopped, I've had guests turn down the water. It's gross.
And I've said this before, we can't make the sins of the past correct immediately. But we have an active program to replace all of the old pipes in town. And your neighborhood is on that list. So if we had $50 or $60 million additional, but even then, we're in a small town, and disrupting all the roads at the same time presents a problem.
I'm sure the residents would prefer drinkable water and deal with a little inconvenience.
The critical piece here is two parts, exactly what Tom had mentioned. So there's a capital plan to address the infrastructure, and again, that is being implemented. There's in addition the periodic testing. As you get that testing, you obviously communicate with staff and make sure staff is aware, and staff does do the regular testing. But certainly as this is brought to the board's attention, when people see water like that, when people test, alerting the board so the board can test. I think that's an important component. So please keep us posted on that, and again, staff follow up on that piece. But you do have the two. You have, again, the ongoing capital project, but then also the testing and making sure we're aware. So
Okay.
Appreciate you coming forward.
I'd be really interested to see what you come up with and coming up with the flushing that year-round until you can get a permanent solution, and also finding out the pipes you aren't replacing in that area, what their contribution is to this.
Yes, so one of the things as part of that 4th Street project, and the reason that it's a priority and what we discussed is it's going into the heart of town, and it's gonna basically be able to see what each one of those side streets looks like, and it is one of the older sections of town. So the board made the decision to do Park because Park was a 1920s. I believe DuPont's a 1950s, and I think Painter and Burton are very similar. So when we go down there, we'll actually get a coupon of every single pipe as you go down the line, and then that will go into the priority of which streets come up next.
Okay.
But we'll keep you in the loop. We'll talk to our guys about hard piping it in and seeing if that could be a quick turnaround solution.
Yeah, because, until we get coupons, as Austin said, how much of the contribution is actually your local piping versus what's coming from 4th Street, which is another old pipe, which is why that one was chosen, because it's kind of the spine to the town over there.
Yeah, I've spoken to all my neighbors on DuPont, and they're experiencing this. I haven't really noticed it with, I mean, we were in a place on the corner of 4th and Mulberry for the last 3 years and didn't have that issue.
Yeah, but again, as they do, if they are experiencing that and have concerns, call it in so that the board can, identify it, go out and test. Because again, there is regular testing, but having that citizen feedback is important. So you being here is helpful for that, but it also helps them log and make sure they test.
Okay.
So please remind your neighbors to do that as well.
Great. I'd be eager to hear what you guys come up with.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Anyone else from the public?
Yes.
You're not really the public.
I am public today. Thank you.
How you
Tim
doing,
Rentzer,
Tim?
And I'm speaking as a private citizen. The question is regarding to the
Could you
subject of.
identify yourself?
I did.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Computers were not working.
Anyway, the question I have goes back to the subject that you spoke about the, you described it as the conduit in the Powelltown Village community. Do I understand that your contractor is direct bearing?
No.
No, not direct bearing. He's going to be pulling, drilling,
Yep.
right? And placing conduit, 3-inch conduit, through which your crew, your people, your employees will actually pull the primary cable. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And my question is this the first time the primary has been replaced in that community?
Yes, in that section, to my knowledge, this is the first time it's been touched since installation in the, I guess that would be 1980s. I believe
Right, late
that's when that
80s,
section-
right.
Yeah.
Okay, and where I'm going with my question is that does the BPW have a maintenance plan, and it's actually a capital plan, to actually replace the primary cable in other communities?
Yes.
You do?
Yep, Bay Breeze is one that's on the books, but we believe from a cost standpoint, we may do that as A, B, and C phase. So we're debating on how we're gonna do that. This project, we're replacing A, B, and C all at once, but we're only doing a section of the Powelltown Village community, phase 1, essentially. But at Bay Breeze, we talked about actually doing conduit for A phase, B phase, and C phase, maybe as 3 separate years. We don't know yet.
So within, speaking of the Bay Breeze, you actually have 3 primary phases running into that subdivision?
There's 3 phase within the subdivision. It
So-
comes across, and then I believe there's a sectionalizing cabinet right there right there at the corner.
Right?
Which the reason
That's
that's
interesting.
kind of on, I don't want to call it on hold, is because the Del Dot work, we actually wanted to reconfigure that, and with the Del Dot roundabout project, we had an initial conversation, and I'll loop you guys in too, but the discussion was undergrounding electric all the way in on that project. So it's something that we're in active discussions with them on, and GMB was in the meeting as well.
So replacing everything that comes in from Kings all the way in?
Potentially, yes.
Possibly.
This is it was the first meeting that we have sat down with Del Dot designers and engineers to have that
Right.
discussion.
So getting back to the Powelltown Village community, you correctly identified the fact that Chantel is going to be working in there, and they're going to be starting soon, very soon. There is, of course, they're going to be using the same right-of-way in which you're going to be working. And you all are coordinating or will be coordinating your construction activities?
I have it on my list as things to reach out tomorrow. is
Okay.
Just to let them know. And we'll confirm with our contractor to know what dates they're looking at, but
Right.
I'm gonna assume it's gonna be January, February, so that it's well ahead of the streets project and not a conflict.
Okay, yeah, that would be really important, right? All righty, and pulling the cable, of course, could be done at any time in the future once you get the conduit in place.
Correct. Yep.
All right, are you also replacing transformers at this time?
We have a program in which we are, because in fact, you get a better warranty out of a rebuilt transformer, a refurb, than you do out of a new one. So we have stock of new ones that we procured over the past 3 years because it was like finding gold to get them.
Right.
And then we do a program where as we start to see surface rust on transformers or anything like that, We'll put a new one in, send the old one out, get refurb, 3 years on that, and then we'll start just replacing here and there. We've done a couple in Powhatan Village. We just did a big 3-phase one the other day, or this year, I should say.
But that was not in the Powhatan Village community.
It was in,
but
actually, it would be,
At the nursing?
it was technically Powhatan Village Phase 2, which would be back down by the pond.
Right.
Right,
Was that a switch, you mean? you
yeah,
did?
switch,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was on a transformer.
Yeah.
Right. One last question, and I'll go sit down.
Yeah.
While you're in there doing this work with the primary cable and terminating the transformers, are you also making sure that the transformer pads are reset and level so that, there's a lot of settlement that occurs,
Yeah.
and some of them need to be raised up as well?
I'm gonna do a plug for Sharon as well, so, and for Rhett. We will be doing that, and the other thing, we circulated letters to the public, different communities, different HOAs because of obstructions near and around
Right, I
transformers.
remember getting that.
So that's one of the things that we're gonna start communicating to make sure that our guys have a safe distance to access and maintain our transformers, so that'll be a part of it too.
Yeah, there are a fair number of transformers, if you go around town, that do not have clearance in the front or on the sides.
Right, the critical part is the front, so that the cabinet can flip open. And
Right, but even from the sides, to be able to, ensure that people don't get trapped or working nearby.
Sure.
So that is something we're starting enforcement on now.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
And it's been in our tariffs for a long time. Anyone else from the public? Call to Bill?
The water quality reports there on your website. I was just looking quickly, I didn't see them off the top of my head, just looking, but I'll look for them.
Yeah, CCRs are on our website, and if you want a link, I'll send you the link to the entire DHSS, all testing that's been done since 2006, 2007.
Okay. And,
It's a public website, so you can go.
yeah. And the flush you were talking about, in layman's terms, can you explain?
It's a solenoid-operated valve that sits on a fire hydrant and just draws water through.
Okay.
Is that a good layman's discussion?
And
Think of it as like a faucet, you turn on, turn off.
the water quality reports are under the information tab.
Oh, okay. I was probably just, I was looking at the wrong place after that, I guess, but I'll find it. And good luck, Austin.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Bill. All right. Then, do we have any need for an executive session?
Minutes.
Okay, all right. So do I have a motion to go into executive session? All in favor? Aye.